All right, welcome back, guys. Hope everyone's having a great day. It's Saturday. Um, we are actually out and about today. My wife, as you guys know, broke her ankle last year when we were out in Colorado Springs, or Colorado rather, heading to a show. Turn that off so that way it's not buzzing in the background. I don't know how stable this whole setup is. As you can tell, as I'm moving, it's moving as well. It's my wife's holder. It's all right. Anyways, yeah, my wife finally, after 3 months post-op from her for her revision surgery on her ankle to get all like the hardware removed and stuff, she had experienced nerve damage as a result of the operation. Let me do this here. Get a little air going in here. It's a little bit on the warm side. There we go. So yeah, we're just kind of doing that. She's inside doing imaging, getting her MRI to see what's happening. Finally, after a few months waiting, it's kind of frustrating, to say the least, to get an MRI done, even if we are paying out of pocket for it. But anyways, here we are. I'm just hanging around in the car waiting. I figured I'd take a moment to have a chat with you guys. Someone in one of my previous videos, just recently, I would say within the last week, had brought up 2026 and some other stuff going on currently in the coin market as well, that leaves him to believe that we are going to be heading into unprecedented, very, very expensive times when we're in 2026. The biggest catalyst, of course, is that it's the semi-quincentennial event. So that's in layman's terms, it's the 250th anniversary of our country. So we've been waiting for it, since 1976, when we last had our big anniversary, the 200 years. I wasn't around yet. Yeah, I was probably maybe a twinkle. A few years later, came into this world, good old Blue Ridge Silverhound. And it didn't seem like he had very, very much high hopes for the hobby next year, And the one thing that I am in agreement with is that things are very expensive now. Not so much because of next year, but the price of precious metals, I don't know if you guys have paid any attention, is pretty crazy right now. Do you guys remember a few days ago when the Fed lowered rates, and as a result, price of silver and gold went down a little bit? A little mini correction of sorts. Well, guess what? On yesterday, it jumped back up. So we're back up over $43 an ounce in silver. And then, $3,600 plus on the gold side. And I have to go back and think about, what in the context of just the way the market is and how crazy expensive it's been getting. I was on Whatnot yesterday, and a seller was doing this very long stream. He had been on for like 12 hours plus, somewhere around there. I've never personally met him before, but he's been collecting for 2 years and had amassed several $100,000 in inventory. It's crazy, Didn't deep dive into how he got his money, things like that. It could have been crypto, which a lot of younger people took advantage of and made their fortune, over the last couple years, or, back in 2020 or whenever the big boom was for crypto. It was post-pandemic, I believe, when things got kind of haywire. So 2020, 2021, a lot of people made a lot of their wealth during that time, for those that were curious enough to kind of figure out this whole crypto thing. I wish I could have, but at the same time, I can't reverse the hands of time to get to that event. The only thing I have control over is where I'm at today. Now, I do have a lot of aftermarket sales, online, whether it's on eBay, on whatnot, things like that. Whatnot, I've been doing it for 2.5 years now. eBay since the year 2000. I've had 2 accounts. So, but my main account I've had since 2007, which is a pretty long time. Was that 18 years? And I've seen kind of like the ebbs and flows of things. We're kind of like in a different kind of situation now, with the price of silver and precious metals continuing to jump. It's not like it reminds me of the Great Recession of like 2008 to 2010, where the housing crisis, a lot of foreclosures, things like that happened. And then we saw price of oil, I guess crude tank, which, made gasoline a little bit cheaper, back under $1 a gallon is what I remember. Even here in good old Northern California. But the rise of precious metals, silver specifically, because it jumped all the way up to over $50 an ounce. I think gold got up there to like 2,000, 2,200 or whatever that high was, which seemed like a lot of money. All right. It seemed like a lot of money. And at that time it was. Okay, a lot of people were suffering, people weren't making nearly as much. People weren't making nearly as much today. And that's kind of like why this gentleman had probably mentioned that, the mint is not going to hold back. Everything's going to be expensive. And that's probably to be expected, unfortunately. I think with everything said and done, we're seeing a tidal wave of all of these. I guess there are people that will call it unfortunate events that are coming into play. That's to make the hobby very expensive next year. The whole reason why I brought up the gold part of it and this other whatnot seller is that he was selling just generic graded mint state 62, 63 St. Gaudens double eagles, which carries a nice healthy premium, even though it's like a common date and there are only 62, 63s. We sold, me and my wife, we sold a couple 1927 St. Gaudens double eagles, both of them in OGH green PCGS holders. I think they're mint state 63s, pretty common date. We sold them at the beginning of the year. I believe it was like right after the New Year's, because we were kind of like recovering financially and we had to do our taxes and filing and all that. We sold those for, I think, $3,100, $3,150 a piece. And right now, they're, for the same coin in the same grade, they're up to $4,000. All in a matter of like 8 months. Now, the kind of the big contributing factor to that, ladies and gentlemen, is the price of the metals. We're at over $3,600 an ounce on gold, $43 an ounce in silver. Based off of that virtue alone, if we were looking at coins of those two particular metals, sure, it's expensive. And I would have no doubt in my mind, with all of the different promos and programs they're doing for 2026 through the US Mint website, you better believe that every single gold piece, every single silver piece will be drastically more expensive next year. Not only because of the prices of the metals jumping here in the last like 6 to 8 months, but also they're going to take advantage of the fact that we're in 2026. The 250th anniversary of our country. Do you think we're just going to sit idly by, and rest on our laurels with the way the pricing structure is currently? Yeah. If they were going to do some specialized Silver Eagle next year with a special 250th anniversary privy mark on it, don't be surprised if you see a price tag of like $175 to $200 for that coin. And again, this is all of the different things. I would say, in my humble opinion, this is all like the good stuff that's compounded onto what is going to end up being the MSRP of the items through the US Mint website, and then the ensuing kind of, after the dust settles, secondary market action, whether the coins end up getting graded or not. And then we got to look at, all the other things they're doing. They're redesigning a lot of the coins for next year. They're either going to add like little privy marks, with the dual dates on there, the 1776 to 2026. They're going to add a privy mark of a Liberty Bell and do this, do that. They're redesigning the dime, redesigning the half dollar. They're doing all this crazy crap with the quarters, and they're bringing back the gold Mercury dime, the gold Standing Liberty quarter, and Walking Liberties, the ones they did back in 2016. As a 100-year anniversary of all three of those obsolete type coins. They're bringing those back for 2026 with a special accompanied medal with each one of those. And yet again, that's more kind of like cash grab opportunity for the US Mint, but they're kind of like dogpiling on what 2026 is. All right, so for the duration of the video, I have to hold my phone. I actually overheated a little bit. But yeah, the US Mint is really dogpiling on the 2026 event, to essentially pilot price, the entire program for the year. And it's not going to be cheap. What makes it even worse, and I think the one component that some people don't think about is the leverage that precious metals and the market itself is going to have on all the collectibles. Now, keep in mind, with silver and gold, all of that's traded on the COMEX. So they're all paper contracts, and the physical demand and the buyouts and all that stuff, or the sell-offs rather, really has no bearing from a physical point of view, because it's just not a lot of volume to help move the needle on the COMEX market for the paper contracts, the industrial usage, I suppose you could say, of silver, and there's gold as well. So it's inescapable what is going to end up happening next year. I don't think it's going to have like this huge, really big play effect on the market of US type coins and paper money and things like that. I don't think we're going to see like these big, giant, huge strides. What I can tell you, however, is that next year's big 250th anniversary thing is going to bring more people into the hobby. The same way that, and then we have to always go back in time and look at various things that have happened over the last, I'd say, 30 years. The statehood quarter program, when it came to be, was a huge coup to bringing in more new collectors, based off of simply that particular release alone back in 1999. Another thing that obviously had a huge power play was the W Mint circulating rarity quarters that came out in 2019 and 2020. Guess what? With all of the social media and all of the different things that people were talking about how important this was to the growth of our hobby, ended up bringing more people out of the woodwork, all for simply just going to the bank and asking for boxes of coin, so that way they could find some of these W Mint quarters, because they were selling at $20-25 a pop right out of circulation, and people were finding like full rolls of them. So that was yet again another thing in the most recent history of numismatics that had really propelled the hobby to new heights. It brought more new people in there. Most importantly, it brought a much younger demographic into our field of work. Because, let's be honest, coin collecting is, for the longest time, not the coolest thing ever. If you even brought it up in a first date, there probably wouldn't be a second date. I'm just saying, you were not getting laid that night if you brought up the fact that you're into coin collecting. And it used to be that thing. Now it's a little bit more progressive. It's a little bit more sexy, I guess you could say, to have your own personal stack of a few 100 ounces of silver, or, some gold, just having gold all strewn about, on your work desk or whatever it is, and you bring a date over by the house, you might get a little action, because there's nothing sexier than a bunch of bullion sitting all over the place, because I don't know, it's like, it's wealth, but in a different form. I don't know, it's kind of cool. But rest assured, whatever will be for 2026. I think we need to enjoy it more at the grassroots kind of level, where we're enjoying the coins, the new designs, things like that. Nobody's gonna have a gun to your head to buy the US Mint product. It's gonna be some pretty banging stuff out there, and it's going to create a lot of wallet fatigue. I think after 2026 and going into 2027, wallet fatigue is gonna be a thing. It's gonna be more of a thing at that time than it is today. So we'll see. But I wanted to let you guys know that I'm looking forward to next year, the redesigns and everything that the US Mint has to offer. I've had my fair share of crap that I've said about the Mint, but I'm truly, truly optimistic about what is going to be happening next year, and I hope you guys are too. So that's pretty much in a roundabout way what I wanted to say in this video. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I shall see you guys soon. You guys take care. Love you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all that great rigmarole. And that's it. So long.